Hello, my name is Clyde Sharady, and thank you very much for watching. This is the Clyde Sharady Show. It's a new show that we are now introducing, which will talk about a number of things, including news and current affairs. We also have business, we have leadership, black excellence, and also we'll talk about spirituality. But before we go any further and before presenting the guests for today, I will just get the generic, the introduction, and we'll go from there. All right. Thank you very much. So, my guest tonight is an excellent woman who is doing business. She's quite active in the African Australian community. She not only is very active in business, but also in community settings where she's trying to obviously have some social impact and positively affect the lives of African Australians. Now, her name is Nkandu Belt. I will bring her onto the show. Nkandu, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. Good to have you on the show. It's been a little
Well,
while.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a while, and massive congratulations, massive strides. You're moving from, yeah, one success to the other. This is really
Well,
inspiring.
we're trying to follow the steps of people like yourself who are very successful in a lot of things that we do. So, thank you again. Now, uh, I know you do a lot of things. I'll try to summarize what I know, and then I'll let you do the rest. I know you are a mining executive. You own a mining company that is operating in Africa, and also obviously you are based in Australia, in Perth WA to be precise. You are a very active woman, as I said earlier, both in the business space and in the community space. You have written a book or two. I'm not sure how many, it could be even more than
Right.
two, but you can tell us more about that. And you obviously want to improve the uh, excellence and achievement within African Australian community. Does that summarizes you, or there's a little bit more?
I think that's just about it, really. I feel like I'm only starting.
You're only starting. Well, there's a lot more where that is coming. That's the message. That's very good. But tell us a little bit about your story coming to Australia, where you're from, and then how did you decide to go into business? We know as a woman, there are a lot of challenges as a mom with a family and all that sort of thing. But tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, so I was born in Zambia in a small place called Katete. Absolutely beautiful. And I think coming from being born in that part of Africa, where it's cultural, it's vibrant, it's full of color, the people are full of life. So my childhood has shaped who I am today, and that is based on the community that I grew up, in. So I was born in Zambia, and then my parents moved to Ndola, which is the capital of the Copper Belt. And yeah, and then from there we moved to Botswana, and then from Botswana I went to the Netherlands, and then came here about 20 years ago, in August. Coming into Australia, I've done a couple of things, like you said, from writing books, having a media background, but I've always had business at the core of everything that I do, because I've always had this idea that if I'm going to create meaningful change in our community, it is by creating employment opportunities. And this again takes me back to Zambia, takes me back to Africa, where when people are so much in poverty, it's very hard for them to actually have basic human rights. So if we want to improve human rights, we need to improve the financial stability of our people, is creating those jobs.
All right. Well, definitely. So we do need to elevate ourselves to greater economic heights, I suppose, and that means that we need to be more entrepreneurial, and people like yourself are showing the way. Now, is it
Mm.
easy or difficult to own a mining company? Oh, I think we're having a little bit of a.
It is very difficult to own a
All right, the
yeah,
internet is a little bit funny
and I
there.
think
You can hear me okay?
I can hear you quite. Yes,
Yeah, I
yes,
think there is some
it's all clear from my
interruption.
side.
Okay, go ahead. Continue.
Yes. So mining is like any other business,
Hmm.
and for me, I believe that the approach that I have taken with mining is it's a business like another business, and for us, our business has 4 legs. So it's and a table with 3 legs to be okay, but it will wobbly. So what I've done is that I've made sure that we've got a really good technical team, and then we've also got a very good finance team because it is a business, so we need to know the numbers and what we're doing and what we're not, what shouldn't be doing. The legal aspect side of things is also very important, and then also the ability.
Okay. Yeah, there is
Mm.
some level of interruption here. I suppose it's due to internet speed of some sort. But if you can
Yeah.
hear me, all right. Yeah, it is improving. Hopefully,
Yes.
um, we won't disrupt much. Now, let me now introduce the news and current affairs segment. I'll just play the intro and then we will go onto it. Just give me one sec. Okay, for the news, Nkandu, we are talking today about two things. The first one is the success of the South Sudanese basketball team on the Olympics. The Olympics are on, as
Oh yeah.
most of us know. I think all of us know that the Olympics are on in Paris,
Mm.
the city of dreams, and I think the Olympics provide a good context, a good opportunity rather for many Afro descendant, because I guess we're pretty much gifted when it comes to sports and other physical type of exercise, and we have a lot of gift, but that side of things is usually very taken care of. What are your feelings about the general participation of African and Afro descendant in the Olympics, and then we'll talk specifically about what the South Sudanese team is doing in basketball?
But I think it's quite exciting because when we watch, right, so from track field to soccer to basketball, we're
Mm.
seeing quite a lot of African participation. Swimming, Zambia is in swimming as well. So and a few other countries. So it is very inspiring. It's very encouraging, and it's also good for African children in general that are watching, not only here in Australia, but around the world. The fact that having these, they have these citizenship, it means that uh, and it gives a lot of children a competitive, because when we look at example with this, they almost won that match with Australia. But when you
Mm.
compare the amount of funding that gets for the Matildas, the Zambia national team or women's national team, equipment, beer, it's very, very limited. So you see,
Ooh,
and I'm give another 10 years or so, or even dominating.
all right. We continue to experience some speed issue. I hope you can hear me okay from your end. Yeah, it's just from this end. It's coming. It's breaking up a little bit. I'm not sure if it's that's happening on your
Yes.
end as well. But sometimes there's very little we can do for these technicalities, for these
No, it's
technical.
very.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So one important element here is that the South Sudanese team almost really defeated the U.S. basketball team, and everyone knows that the dream team, as they refer to it, is very, very strong. It's the number one. They've been winning gold medals. I don't know for the last 7, 8 years or whatever. But the South Sudanese were so good. In fact, they were just a few seconds away from winning the team. What that inspires you in terms of the things that our Africans can achieve with very minimal resources.
Well, I think that in itself, to me, it just shows grit. No matter how hard and no matter how celebrated the other teams can be, it is that self-belief and going to onto that court and going, I am going to give it my best, and it's not over until I say it's over. And I think that mentality, that sports mentality, is very much needed in everyday life as well as in business. So the South Sudanese team did us proud, and yeah, I'll be staying up. It will be 3 a.m. Perth time, so we'll definitely be cheering for them tonight, tomorrow morning. Yeah.
Well, I need to say it's not just the South Sudanese team. There are a lot of other, not only Africans but Afro-descendant participants, Olympians who've done quite well. But we just don't have much time to go into everyone. Perhaps
Absolutely.
next show we will go into a few more of those Afro-descendants who are excelling in the Paris show. Now, the next
It's very
item.
true. And we've got
Go
our
ahead.
very own Peter Bow as well. I'm saying
Ah,
before you
yes,
go to the
yes,
next point, we've got our very own Peter Bow. Yes,
absolutely,
yes. So
absolutely.
looking
I
forward
nearly
to him
forgot
coming home.
about him.
Yes.
He's been wonderful, and he's participating. Hopefully, he wins a medal. But he's up there on the top few that who are expected potentially to win, isn't he?
Exactly. He's really good and he's winning. So he will give it his I'm sure.
Okay, okay. Now, the next thing about the news is Dangote. There is an issue with Dangote, the richest black man uh, in the whole world at the moment. The Nigerian mogul is apparently having difficulties with the Nigerian government to get crude oil for his refinery. For those who don't know, I think most of us, especially Africans, know that he's built the largest refinery in Africa and one of the largest in the world. But now, unexpectedly, we don't know, it's probably politics and more than politics into all these things. The man is getting having a lot of difficulty to secure crude oil in Nigeria. That goes to show how sometimes, as business people, entrepreneurs, we may have obviously we have a lot of hurdles, a lot of obstacles on our entrepreneurship journey. But a man of this caliber, with so much wealth, with so much that he's done, not just for Nigeria but for Africa as well, after spending, I think it's about close to $20 billion on the refinery, is having trouble to get crude oil in Nigeria, and apparently that is all connected to the politics of oil, and that connects both the government in Nigeria as well as some other international players into this. Now, without going too much into the politics of Nkandu, what does tell you about the difficulties that African entrepreneurs sometimes face, whether it's within their own community, their own governments, and more broadly, and that just means we have a much higher hurdle to jump.
Yeah, working in Africa and doing business in Africa, it's very, very complex. His particular situation, I am not very familiar with, other than the little that I've read. And then also, it would be very important to understand the frameworks of the legal system in Nigeria. when it comes to crude oil. So I can talk about copper, which we're dealing with in Zambia. And then, of course, dealing with governments in general, it's never easy. But governments do understand that, entrepreneurs are the ones that alleviate poverty. They're the ones that create jobs. They're the ones that are on the ground being the change makers. So I think governments all around the world should be good at governing the country, and making sure that they set up investor-friendly policies, and then let the business people run the businesses. Sometimes it's issues with procurement, but I'm very sure that whatever Mr. Dangote is going through, he's got a really good legal team that is supporting him. And this is probably not a very big challenge for him, because I've read so much about this man and he's a go-getter. So whatever hurdles he's going to face, he's very determined to go through. He's gone this far, and I don't think this will stop him. I think it's just a minor setback.
Sure, we know the man is tough. The man knows his business. He's been in business for quite long. You don't become the richest black man in history, or I mean, maybe not in history, but in the world, without having a high level of business acumen. All that goes into putting a multi-billion-dollar business together. Hopefully, he will go through this. But I see when we organize summits, Afropreneur Summit in Australia here, we meet a lot of entrepreneurs. One thing that they tend to complain about is they get very little support from their own community. When you look at what other people are doing, whether it's the Indians, the Jewish, the Italians, the Middle Easterners, you see a high degree of collaboration, partnership, and support in these communities in business. But for us Africans, we tend to struggle. So not only we struggle from our own community, and then sometimes, in the African context, entrepreneurs have a lot of difficulties doing their business because authorities are not making things easier for them. What would you say, based on your own journey and your own experience, what needs to be done to sort of improve in this area?
I'm really glad you brought up that topic, because that's really, really important. So in my experience, when I started the mining company, initially, I reached out to a few of top African experts in Australia to see if they could join my board. And because the company was very new, they did not want to take part in it. So I had to look, outside that community, my community, in order to set up. And now that we've set up and we're getting success, and now the community is coming back and say to me, oh, we need you to give back, or alternatively, how can we join? So that mentality needs to stop, within our African community, because it's like, when starting, we don't want to be there because it's too hard. And then when it gets better, then we want to join. So we need to change. We need to do better. And then the other thing, when I look at my friends, within the Jewish community, for example, they support each other through and through, whether be it financially, be it, just with skills, somebody coming in and saying, okay, fine, I will mind the office and I will do ABCD. So we have this philosophy of Ubuntu, I am because we are, but we need to see that in action. We're not seeing it in action. We need to see Ubuntu in action.
Well, we need to see Ubuntu in action, but a lot of the times it doesn't happen. We kind of just sort of talk about it, and when it comes to delivering it, there are issues. And maybe a couple things you may recommend that is done on a practical level to sort of trying to change things in this area.
So I will stick with the resource sectors, for example. So like for us, right? So it's like, one, we've got lots of people that have got lots of knowledge in the mining field. And mining is not only, digging up rocks and blowing things up. It's a very large, comprehensive business. So we people that have got, like, for example, even media training. writing up press releases, things like that. It's okay, how can I help? That is actually my favorite phrase. Mentorship. We have got so many young people that are here in our universities that want to get into spaces, and a lot of us have been in Australia for me 20 years now. We've got vast networks. How can we get those children and hold their hand so that when we go to those networking events, we can introduce them to people that are, they can learn something from, because
Mm-hmm.
your network is your net worth. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not too late, so let's hold hands, let's collaborate, let's, competition in business is good, but collaboration is better. Yeah, and for me, mainly it's our students, our university children. So not only do they need the skills, they also need the moral support, they need the mentorship, and just to go, it's okay, I've got you.
Absolutely. Competition is good in business, but collaboration is even better. And that's what the motto we have at Afropreneur Summit Network. We say collaborate to elevate. When we
Mm,
collaborate, we can elevate ourselves to greater heights. And we talked so much about this. And hopefully, and I can see some signs that there are actually some. I mean, there is a level of progress. It's just that we need
yeah.
to actually do a lot more than what is currently happening. Okay, now we'll go into I suppose leadership. This is our third segment. Now, Nkandu, in order for you to be successful in anything, whether it is in business, in life in general, and other endeavors, you ought to have good leadership skills, self leadership skills. For someone like yourself, for the things that you have achieved and what you're still doing, what can you share with us? What you do on a regular basis, on a daily basis, about your routine and habits that help you to improve your self leadership skills?
Well, I'll summarize it I think in a sentence. Readers are leaders. I read.
Hmm.
And I think with that it gives us a lot of self introspect as well. So what I do, part of my routine is I set up 6 things that I need to achieve the following day, and I make sure that at the beginning of that day I have to start with the most top priority actions, and that takes a lot of discipline to do that. It's
Hmm.
not easy. And I find that when my day is properly structured with top priority actions and things that are truly inspiring and fulfilling to me, I get less distracted. And I also get less distraction. So, for example, if I haven't got anything on my agenda, I start to get phone calls about people that just want to talk about maybe shopping or stuff that
Mm.
is not going to add any value to my life. But the universe has a weird and wonderful way of making sure that, when you've got your priority list, even the phone calls that you'll be receiving, it will be phone calls that are, in the order of your priorities. So I always say, find out what sets your soul on fire. What are you truly inspired by, and then are you living congruent with those goals that you have set up? And one of the things probably we're going to go back into later, is if today was the last day for me on earth and I stood before God and God asked me, did you do everything that you could with the life that I gave you and the talents
Mm.
and the connections? I want to be able to say yes. So that is the question I ask myself every time before I go to bed. Did I do everything that I could, for humanity, for myself, for my family, for my community, for my business?
Mm.
Yeah. And if the
Absolutely.
answer is no, I do
No, go
better
ahead. Sorry.
tomorrow. Yeah. So now I said, if the answer is no, then I'll do better tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, there are a lot of challenges that go into leadership, self leadership, because obviously we live in a society where there's increasingly high level of distraction.
Mhm.
There are also quite a lot of things that are trying to, I suppose, to compete for our mind, for our attention, and
Yeah.
then there is also the everyday needs that we need to meet, and all of that. So it's looks like it makes the whole leadership and self leadership exercise a little tougher than perhaps it used to be. You agree?
Oh, it is tough. There's so many distractions, and the attention span is very, very little. So it takes a lot of discipline, and it's also very important to have accountability partners. So,
Hmm.
and this is where you have your accountability buddy, and you tell them, these are my goals, and I need to achieve them by so and so and so dates, so that they can get back to you. And because when you're accountable to people, you know that you have to achieve those goals. So whether it's by improving your marks in a class if you're a student, or by meeting certain KPIs if you're in a workplace, yeah, it's all sometimes it's just making sure that we're drinking water and eating healthy, but set reminders on your phone as well. It helps.
It indeed does help. Any technology that you can use to remind yourself of the things you need to do is
Mm.
very good. Now, before we leave this topic, what's your overall view about the quality of leadership within the African Australian community, and then the African continent as such?
Yeah.
What can you say about that?
I'm actually excited about this because I'm seeing a lot of leadership programs that are sprouting from, compared to 10 years ago.
Hmm.
I'm like, for example, your company, you've been doing this for a very long time. And
Hmm.
when you look at the people that have participated in everything that you have done and where they are today, I'm one of them. So
Mm.
those platforms do work. So don't stop. And then also seeing a few others, the African Australian networking program. There's African Professionals Network.
Hmm.
So we are getting there. We are, there's a lot that's happening. Bella in here in Perth recently did a platform for young entrepreneurs, and then on the African continent, I feel it's also getting better, because what I'm seeing whenever I travel back to the mainland is that we have people like me in the diaspora, and then we've got our African leaders, not necessarily in politics, but leaders in all areas. And when we
Hmm.
come together and collaborate on how to solve problems, it's getting better. So I think having best of both worlds and exposure, and then going back and collaborating with the people on the ground, we're seeing some improvements. It's not perfect, but it's better. Yeah.
It's not perfect, but it is better. And maybe last question here. You talked about that competition versus collaboration. And we know that is certainly a big issue when it comes to leadership. Leaders in the community ought to embrace that collaboration mentality. But what is it that is holding people back? They are not doing it as much as they should.
I think a lot of the time is fear, and that fear, it brings me back to the quotation from Nelson Mandela, which he read during his inaugural speech when he was elected as president of South Africa, that our deepest fear is not that we're inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we're capable beyond measure. And I find that a lot of the time, people are afraid of their own success, and it gets in their own way. So when it comes to leadership as well, a lot of people are playing small, so they would rather, aim so low so that they can, hit the target, as opposed to aiming so high and missing it. So I think once we get that fear out of our head and realize that, what's the worst that could happen? I could
Yeah,
fail, but then so what? I'll start all over again. Yeah.
absolutely. You can fail and you can succeed. We'll go to the next section before the last, which is talking about spirituality. A personal question, if you may. Are you a spiritual person?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, tell us then why spirituality matters for you and how that is applied in your everyday and how it is contributing to your success.
Wonderful. So I would take it in different blocks. How I'm going to answer this question. So I grew up in a Christian faith. So my parents, my mom was actually Catholic, and my dad Seventh Day Adventist. So when I got to my grandmother, we did Catholic, and then at home to my parents, we did Seventh Day Adventist. And then I grew up and studied religious education when I was in high school, and then coming to Australia. I dived into science and noetic science, and then having to have the privilege and honor to meet with the Dalai Lama and interview him, and then also a lot of other thought leaders like Dr. John DeMartini, Tony Buzan. So I began to ask myself, what is the gold particle? And it took me back to quantum physics, so there is divine intelligence, and I don't think it's something that has been quantified or fully understood or fully defined, by the Bible or other religious texts. I think for me, it's about, we have this saying, uze uzimoya, meaning know thy spirit, so it's knowing yourself because you are a spiritual being having a human experience. And that is where my spirituality comes from. And I see the divinity in everything that I do.
And how do you then translate that spiritual consciousness into the everyday thing that you do, and how that support your success beyond that awareness and that knowledge of the spiritual part of the world?
So it comes from a place of love and love in action. So everything that I do, I ask myself, does this feel like love? And what does love feel like? So it's having that unconditioned, one for myself. No matter what I do or don't do, I deserve to be loved, and I deserve to love others. And also that does not mean that I have to tolerate, people not being nice to me because I'm coming from a place of love, so I have to let things slide. No. But it's making sure that, I'm congruent to my values. And then two, it's also knowing that my time is limited. This could be it, or I could have another 40 years, or more. But it's knowing that within that time that I have, that I'm experiencing here on earth, because I'm here to have an experience, how do I make sure that this experience is the best that I have been given? Because, of all the things that could happen on earth, I am here, right now. I gotta have gratitude for that, and for me to actually experience everything and everyone, and to share time and space with everything and everyone. It's absolutely divinity. And I know that once my time here is finished and I kick the bucket, I will look back and say, yes, I did it my way. And whatever comes up next, I'm not afraid.
Who knows what comes up next? Only him knows. We all can just say, well, we tried, Lord. We tried what we could do, and the rest we leave it to you, and you decide. That's very good. Now,
Exactly. But I know the divine providence has got me covered, so God has got my back.
that's good. And I see a lot of us as African people, we are very spiritual. Where do you think that is coming from? Even those of us living in the Western countries where spirituality is not all that much valued and practiced as we can see back in our continent. But where is that devotion coming from?
I think there's two parts, right? So I spent a lot of time with my grandfather, and I love African history. So there's the African in us before religion was introduced to us, and then there's the African in us where Christianity and other religions were introduced to us. And I think way before Christianity was introduced, we were still spiritual people. We were coming from a place of gratitude, and we had many gods that we used to worship. And when you look into the history, this is not like idol worshiping, but this is acknowledgement and gratitude and reflection and self-introspection. That
Mm-hmm.
is what our ancestors, spent time with. So for
Mm.
example, after harvest, there's a Nchwala ceremony in Zambia where people would come together and share the food. And that is part of the practice, the traditional and spiritual practice where you share food and make sure that no one in the community is left behind. And then some of those practices have continued. And then we've got the Christianity, where we now worship only one divine God, and but still come together as a people and still celebrate. The only problem that I have with a lot of the modern churches now is that they've commercialized this and made it a business, and
Mm.
a lot of people have actually suffered because a lot of our people have become so gullible that they think certain people hold tickets to prosperity and to the keys to heaven. And that is not true, because all of us have got that God-given direct line to speak
Mm-hmm.
with God. You do not need somebody to come and talk to God on your behalf, unless they are Mother Mary, Mother of Jesus. That, yes, but if they're here on earth, absolutely not.
All right, that brings me to the next point. The next question I was gonna ask is, uh, you mentioned obviously that the practice of spirituality in the African continent, for example, and not just, but even in other countries where Africans live. When you look at that, you see there's a lot of things you would want to see change, and to the point where some people are questioning whether our spirituality is actually helping us to move forward as a people, or is
Mm.
kind of holding us back. What do you think?
Well, I think it's holding us back.
Mm.
It is holding us back. The reason I say that is I would take the modern religion right now. There is a few churches, right, that are mega rich and their people are mega poor. And what they're doing is they're focusing so much on teaching about heaven. And
Hmm.
they themselves are getting richer and they're out of poverty, while their followers are languishing in poverty and giving up 10% of their
Income.
of their earnings, of their income, so that they can have blessings. What these people should be doing is should be teaching people that there is nothing noble about being poor, and there is nothing noble about being a beggar, and
Hmm.
they should be teaching them the actual values of their religion. Because when we look at religion in its context, even if we look at the Bible, I've got the Bible on my bookshelf. There were so many rich people in the Bible. There's nothing evil
Hmm.
about being rich, because once you make enough money, you're able to help people. Poor people don't help people, and there's nothing noble about that. So
Mm.
the way the churches are structured at the moment, they're actually disempowering people. They're not empowering people, and they're holding us back. So I would like for people to actually question their religious leaders to say, is this for our benefit or is this for your bank balance?
Okay, well, I see this is a really very interesting conversation. Unfortunately, we're running out of time, but maybe we'll come back to it on another day. Just talking about spirituality, because I believe it's really, really important.
Oh,
Not only
absolutely.
in driving people towards excellence, the pursuit of excellence, and the achievement of their God-given destiny. But
Mm.
then the other side is that if it's not done properly, it could keep people into a system of poverty and lies and all that sort of thing. So maybe I'll invite you another time. We'll just specifically just talk about this. I sense that there's a lot more there that you would like to be
Oh,
able to talk about.
absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. I'll come back. Yes.
Before we finish, I'm going to invite you to a game that I will play. I will ask you 5 questions and only answer the 4 questions. Only answer with one word, and the last question answer with 3 words, and that'll be the conclusion of our show. All
Okay.
right. In one word, what's the best thing about being African?
That's a tough one. The best thing about being African, the continent itself,
The land
the
and
land,
the people,
yes.
as opposed
And
it goes all together.
mm,
All right. That's fine. Next thing is, in one word, what do you think us Africans need to change to be better?
Nothing.
Okay, nothing. All right, I won't go into it. I'll just take your answers. And the next one is, in one word, uh, what is the best thing about Australia for you as an African?
The best thing about Australia for me as an African,
Hmm.
freedom.
Freedom. Okay, and then in three words, which is pretty much the summary of this show, I want you to tell what can you tell people who are watching you today, and what can you leave them with uh, that they can take home or keep and run with it for their own success.
3 words: live, love, inspire.
Live, love, and inspire. That's a lot of wisdom in there. If you want to unpack it, maybe another day we will have time to unpack. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. We've been speaking today with a wonderful human being, a wonderful business person, a wonderful community leader, Nkandu Belts, all the way from Perth WA. Nkandu, thank you very much for your time to the Clyde Sharady show. It's the first time you actually have the honor of being the first host on this specific
Oh,
show in this format. And we hope to have you some other time to come back and talk more about some of those things that we couldn't have enough time to unpack.
absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute honor. And
All right.
congratulations once.
No worries. Thank you, guys. And just as we say all the time, please, if you like the video, share, comment, and if you have something to say, if you want to come to the show, please do not hesitate to contact us. We're happy to provide opportunities for people who've got something to say so that we can share the wisdom in the community. So that is all from me. Until next time, stay blessed and stay connected. Thank you.